People are always surprised when I tell them that most of my volunteers are men. They're African men because they want to see change happen. And they love the fact that women are getting cameras, telling stories of themselves and the women in their communities. But they're not just telling women's stories, they're telling men's stories with empathy and understanding and compassion.
Welcome to the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of SheClicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk with women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. This episode is with Amina Mohamed, founder and executive director of Cameras for Girls. Amina's early experiences as a refugee has driven her to empower young women across Africa through photography and storytelling. With over 15 years in Canada's film and television industry, she now leads the Canadian charity that trains women in Uganda, Tanzania and South Africa, equipping them with the skills to thrive in media. Amina is a powerful advocate for gender equality in media and continues to transform lives through her work. Hello, Amina. Thank you so much for joining me today on the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast.
I am so grateful for this opportunity, Angela. I love what you do at SheClicks, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Now, your early experience as a refugee has played a huge role in your work and current position. As a way of introduction, could you explain to listeners what happened to your family when you were a child?
Yeah, we come from Uganda, and just for context, I'm living in Canada at the moment. That's where I grew up. We came from Canada, and my parents were born there. My sister was born there. And in 1972, Idi Amin, who had taken over in a coup, decided that all the Indians had to go overnight. So with 90 days notice, he decreed all Asians must leave. And at first we thought he was crazy. But at first we thought it was a joke, but it was no joke. So we were out on the second last plane to leave, headed for Canada. We ended up in Canada because the Aga Khan, who is the leader of the Ismaili Muslims, I'm an Ismaili, was very good friends with the then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. And so he made a plea because many of the countries were saying, no, we don't want the refugees. We don't want them. Send them somewhere else. And so I was born in the UK, and my parents had studied in the UK, but my dad said, no, we're going to Canada. So we came to Canada and we settled here. And my life has been shaped by this experience because I grew up. I'll go into the story of how Cameras for Girls, because it kind of comes together. But I grew up thinking that all women and girls had the same opportunities we have in Canada. I got free education, our taxes pay for our free health care, and, life in general is pretty good. And then I was working in film and television at the time, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Uganda and discover my roots and do a documentary about the Indians who were coming back to claim their properties. And that was 2007. And aside from the debilitating poverty, because after Idi Amin and what he had done, thinking that he was making the country better for the Black African, he had actually ruined the country, ruined the economy, bankrupted it overnight. People were living in worse poverty than ever, and it continues because dictatorship. And so, I was meeting young girls and young women, 14 years old, telling me, oh, I was married off at 14 because my family couldn't afford to educate me, or because I was a girl, they didn't want to educate me. And my whole view of the world changed overnight. My whole view of what is actually happening on the other side of the world when you grow up in an Indian family who tells you, oh, life was wonderful. But was it for the Black African? No, it wasn't. And the deep shame that came up as well of the, being in a bubble and thinking everybody was the same, and not knowing at the time how I could actually make a difference. But that experience profoundly shaped how I looked at the world from then on. And, every time I come home from Uganda, and I've been home a month now, it takes me 3 to 4 months to settle in, just in time to go back, because of the inequities I see there, and coming home to a world that always wants more but already has enough. And so I really struggle with that. And that the experience of being a refugee builds in me a deep empathy for others who are facing refugee or immigrant status. Because there's a saying, as an immigrant, you come to a new country and you're ready to adopt the new way of life because you're looking for something different. As a refugee, you're forced to leave the world you knew, and you're constantly searching for the past. You're constantly wishing that it was the same. And I think I've grown up with both sides of the way of looking at the world. And so that kind of what shapes me.
Yeah, there must be a huge sense of loss, I think, if you're a refugee.
There's a lot of loss. And there's, it's a trauma that doesn't go because I was 3. So I thought I remembered. You don't remember anything. But watching my parents' trauma, which passes on to the generation, it's a generational trauma. So if you watch a refugee who's come with children, young children, those children grow up now in a new country not knowing. But when you grow up with generational trauma, it's different because that never leaves you. And my parents have never gone back because they don't want to see what Uganda became. They want to remember it as it was.
But it sounds like a blessing, although it was awful at the time. It sounds like a blessing that you got out and you got to Canada.
Absolutely. We are so, I am so grateful every day for the country that we get to live in. But if you ask me tomorrow, would I go back and live in Uganda? Hell yes, because I love the vibrancy. I love the people. The people are just so beautiful. And when I say to them, oh, I'm a returning, Ugandan, I've come back, I get hugs and I get thank yous. And I'm the one who has to say, no, thank you for inviting us back, for welcoming us, because it's their land. It's not mine. It's not ours.
That's lovely. So what motivated you to set up Cameras for Girls, or why specifically Cameras for Girls?
So I was working in film and television for 15 years. I had an incredible career. I started in wardrobe. My last film was American Psycho. And then I went into producing short films and documentaries, and then into the TV world. But it was heavy, hard work, like long hours. And I knew that I could not do this forever. So I left that world and I went into real estate, and then eventually into mortgages and financing. Very different world. And I'd put my camera away. I'd put all my storytelling skills and my filmmaking skills away, thinking, oh, this is not my life anymore. But something was missing. I was winning awards. I was making great money and I should have been happy. But inside I was miserable. I knew that there was a bigger version of myself or a bigger purpose to life. I just had not found it yet. And I had reached out after I finished the documentary. So I think it was 2017. I had reached out to my fixer and we had stayed friends. And I reached out and said, so what's happening in Uganda? I have this inner drive to grab my camera again and come to the northern part of Uganda and teach photography to young girls who've been affected by the Joseph Kony, child soldiers. And he said, no, you'll lose your money. They'll take the cameras and they'll sell them. And there's no electricity. There's no internet. But if you really have something, come to Uganda and teach the young women who are trying to be journalists. And I said, why would they need me? I'm not a journalist. I worked in film, not in media. And he said, because they're told when they don't have a camera, they don't know how to use it, they can't get work. They can't get paid work. They can't get a job. They might have a job, they don't get paid. And I was like, bingo. So that, it kept on percolating. I went to write my mortgage broker exam. And I was sitting there waiting for the exam to start. And I looked at the clock and I looked at the paper and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is not what I want. I put my pen down and I walked out. And that night, I have insomnia. I woke my husband up at 3:00 in the morning and he goes, and I said, that's it. I'm going back to Uganda and I'm going to teach photography. And he looked at me and he said, I know you're crazy. Good luck with that. And he went back to bed and I stayed up writing the business plan. And that was August 2017. And the next August, we were in Uganda doing our first test run with 15 girls, 15 borrowed cameras of all types, point and shoots, just to see, is this something that's needed? And 2 weeks after finishing the first workshop, this girl, Jonita, writes to me and says, Amina, because of what you did, because of the training, because of the camera you gave me, now keep in mind, those were just, crappy point and shoots at the time because I begged, borrowed, and stole everything I could get my hands on. She had had a job for 6 months, but she was not getting paid. And she wrote to me to say, I went to show my editor that I now owned the camera and I could use it to accompany the stories I was writing. Today, she's now in a senior level position. Back then, she got put into a position where she was writing and getting published 4 times a week. And a year later, when the roof flew off the house, she was able to fix it. And she was able to move out on her own, pay for her mom to have a house and a TV, which is something that we take for granted, but is not normal. And she's doing really well. And that was 2018. And now up to this, we've trained 164 young women with cameras in their hands just in Uganda alone.
Amazing.
And it's that gender-based barrier that, we look at a camera and we're like, oh, I want that one and I want that one. But this tool, it's not the tool that you use, how you use it is opening up gender equality and breaking down those gender-based barriers and, getting these girls out of poverty.
So it's one thing having the idea.
Yeah, it is.
But another making it the reality. So, you said there was a year where you were basically setting it up and getting organized to go back out. How did you facilitate that?
I was reaching out to people I had met in Uganda, namely Venix, who was this fixer. And he was putting me in touch with, organizations. They didn't want to partner up. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. I'm a expat who's trying to come back to Uganda. And so he helped me recruit the first 15. And we did this through Makerere University, which is the biggest journalism university in Uganda, who is now a partner. So in the first, workshop, we had no partnerships. We had nothing. I took my savings. I paid for everything. But we did have a BBC journalist in that room. And she was one of our students. Imagine a BBC journalist in Uganda who had no photography experience, but was working. She's a go-getter. And based on that and the experience that we were able to capture via video and back in 2007, I was shooting film. Now it was digital. So we were able to turn something around, go back to Makerere and see, look at what we did for your students. You are teaching theoretical curriculum. And when they come out of school, they are not equipped with the skills or the tools to get a job. Now we can fit that gap. And they loved it. And so they were our first and still longest standing university partner. So we recruit our students for our year-long program out of these 3 university partners we have in Uganda now. We have one in Tanzania. We're building up as we go. And so what we do is we look for young women who are in their 2 last years, either 3rd or 4th, or have graduated and can't find work simply because they're lacking the skills and the tools. And so it's not just about photography. I have to stress this, that our year-long curriculum goes into photography, ethical storytelling, and vital business skills. Skills like, how do I build a business plan if I want to go on my own? How do I build a CV? How do I get on LinkedIn with a robust platform and learn how to network? How do I write properly, right? It's incredible how many of these girls come out and they don't even have basic computer skills or basic writing skills. So we teach them AI, we teach them Grammarly, everything in the toolbox they're going to need to be successful once they leave Cameras for Girls. In the back end of our year-long training is a platform I built called the Online Learning Hub. When I couldn't get back to Uganda because COVID happened, I thought, oh my God, all the work I've put in and we're going towards charity status, I can't let this fail. So I sat down during COVID and I built an online learning hub in the back of our website. This houses all the video trainings we do. So every Friday I teach live on Zoom. And there's women who are coming across Africa from our in-person groups, but also women who found us online who have their own tools, who want to learn. And then we now involve women from the MENA region, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, anywhere women are striving to have a voice and are told your voice doesn't matter, we say, yes, it does. And so we teach them how to use their voice, how to take photos, how to write stories, how to put themselves out there, not just on social media, but through newsletters, through podcasts. There's so many mediums in storytelling, but we frame everything we do around an ethical storytelling framework. So on the side, I teach this to other groups, but I can't walk the walk on this side and not incorporate it into what we do at Cameras for Girls as well. 2 reasons. These girls, especially in Uganda or Tanzania, wherever you're coming from, they are coming from cultures like in Uganda, for instance, 54 different languages, different tribes, and different cultures across this vast country, beautiful pearl of Africa. And so if you're in the north, you're not going to know anybody in the south or how they live, or the east or the west. And you have to learn how to navigate each other's cultures, be respectful. There's also, Christianity, Islam, Catholicism, Protestant, Seventh-day Advent, like they're everything there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they learn ethical storytelling and they're getting in the field and they're meeting other women or people in different communities, they're asking for consent. First of all, may I tell your story? How do you want to be referred? And how do you want me to tell your story? Like show you. And this is where it's going to be seen and shared. So the person has that right to say no, right? Because many times you'll walk around wanting to take photos and, you'll see a hand come up like in front of their face. Don't take my photo because you haven't asked for consent. It's not street photography. This is, documentary. So we teach them all of these, which also, secondary point, it keeps them safe. They're women in a male space that are constantly told you don't belong here. And so if they're walking around with a camera and they're not safe in the, and learning these tools or these skills, they're at danger.
Yeah. It's nice to hear that you're teaching them the modern tools as well by including things like AI, because I think often when you're in catch-up mode in an area, there's a tendency to sort of teach something that's 10 years out of date, but you're bang up to the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, we're constantly looking at what's in the market, what are the needs and the skill. But we also do a lot of surveying with our students, past, present, and future, and say, what is it you need? What is missing in your country or in your area or in East Africa or whatever that is not allowing you to get jobs? Is it podcasting? Do you need to learn podcasting? So many of them like, yes, I want to learn about podcasting, but it's cost prohibitive. So we go out and seek a partner that teaches podcasting. And now that lives on our online learning hub. So any girl who comes by can learn podcasting. If they want to learn about AI and Grammarly and ChatGPT and all these different things, we're demonstrating. We're finding experts in that field who can come on and teach about that thing. We have people who come on and teach about mental health and sexual harassment. We incorporate this into our 4-day workshop because it's not enough to just say, hey, in the 3 days we're in the classroom and the 1 day we're in the field, you're going to learn how to use your camera without touching the nasty parts of the media industry, which, number one, hold them back from entering it. Number two, keep them from entering it because they're told, oh, if you don't sleep with me, I won't pay you. But third, and most importantly, teaching them how to advocate against it. So to give you an idea, 2 years ago when we did this training in Tanzania, one of the women looked at me and said, we can't talk about this. And I turned back and I said, who told you can't talk about it? Who told you that? And she said, culture. And I said, well, culture's wrong and culture changes only when we stand up for ourselves. So 2 months after that, the same girl is on a bus and she's accosted by the bus driver and a passenger late at night. She doesn't get off the bus and go home. She goes straight to the police station, files a report, gets the bus driver fired and the passenger charged, and wins a settlement that she used to pay off the rest of her education.
Fantastic.
And she wrote to me and said, if I had not sat in on that training and you had not told me to advocate, I would have been raped and worse and gone into. So we really touch upon mental health, and we keep on top of this because while it's not in our direct mandate, it is, you cannot walk around in a silo and ignore these things are happening. And you cannot not talk about these things because then they continue to happen. So we get in there, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and do the work that needs to be done so that we can change the girls' lives, because it's not just a camera that's going to change their lives. It's everything that comes around it.
Yeah, it's the bigger picture. But when you hear stories like that, the hairs on the back of your neck must really stand up when you realize the impact.
I get angry. I don't sleep. I get depressed. So I have to find ways to do a lot of mental health care. And I'm not good at that part until I get pushed to the wall, which is, where we are currently.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it's opening up the room for discussion and finding partners who can take that on for me so that I'm not having to do everything. Because right now I'm just a one-person founder with, volunteers as a team. And to also have to deal with that would be so overwhelming on a daily basis that I would not be able to do everything else to lead this charity forward. And so I'm very lucky to have partners who come in on the back end who are experts in those areas, who can take that off me and help the girls through these challenges, because they never stop. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And you major on photography. Do you do some filmmaking as well with the girls?
Yeah, no, we offer them filmmaking camps through partnerships, but it's not a core part of our program, simply because the tools you need for filmmaking versus photography are vastly different, more cost prohibitive. And while filmmaking is growing, we always say, you know what, learn the basics first. Learn with a camera first, and then from there we can find you our partners who can take you down the filmmaking route. We are looking at, do we divide our curriculum to meet this need? But you can't be everything to everyone, right? And so then you're talking about mission drift, and we don't want to be caught in that, because then we're going into an area that we're not equipped for, and it would take a lot more people to make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. In your experience, how would you say that storytelling by women differs from that of their male counterparts? Does it come down to the subjects or their approach or something else?
I think it's both. We look at the rural woman, right? And they talk about gender-based violence. They talk about losing children in childbirth because they couldn't get to the hospital in time because it's too far. They talk about having to be the ones who are keeping the homestead, or, doing the agriculture and the farming. They talk about so many things. When males tell their story, they tell it in statistics.
Mm-hmm.
When women tell their story, they tell it with empathy and understanding, because they can walk in their shoes, or they can try to walk in their shoes. And they also represent women in a larger scope of what she's going through. And it's not just maybe in a Ugandan context, but in a global context. If you look at where women are today, still in 2025, trying to break that glass ceiling, and then you take it into, the rural or even the urban settings of a Ugandan or an African woman, it might not be the glass ceiling, but she's always trying to break some kind of ceiling.
Yeah.
And we still haven't gone that far. And so if men are constantly being able to tell these stories and not bring proper context because they don't understand the lived experience, where is the women's voice? The women's voice is so vital in this space, and it will change gender equality if given the opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. Give them the opportunities to not only tell their stories, but the stories of their communities, their fellow women, and women at large, so we can change how we are viewed in this world and the opportunities we are given. Sorry, I get very passionate about it, but I came from an industry, film, where I was constantly told, you don't belong here.
Mm.
And I would have to go back first as a woman and then a woman of color. And I would constantly have to fight back and say, well, I guess you found the first one who's going to remain, right? I'll leave on my terms, not yours. And it's very disheartening when a girl writes to me and says, they told me I couldn't do this because I'm a girl. And I said, I'm telling you can do this, right? Now we have to be culturally sensitive because we don't want to put her at risk. But when she learns how to use her voice and advocate for herself, change does happen.
Yeah. You're talking about people actually saying you can't do this, but there are other subtler ways, not particularly subtle, but subtler ways of saying the same thing, like never ever seeing a woman doing a particular job, never ever seeing a woman of colour doing a particular job. And therefore you get this idea that nobody said it isn't for you, but you just understand it isn't for you.
Absolutely. And it was so funny because I was in Uganda, and at the beginning of my trip, I meet this young man who says, we were at an event, and he looks at me and he says, I've never seen a girl with a camera before. And I just looked at him and I was like, and I didn't know what to say. And I was like, do you live in a bubble? I felt like saying, do you live in a bubble? Right. But and then I had to think about it. Yeah, this is why we're doing this, because we want that, that wording or that viewpoint or that saying to change to, oh, I love seeing a woman with a camera. And people are always surprised when I tell them that most of my volunteers are men. They're African men because they want to see change happen. And they love the fact that women are getting cameras, telling stories of themselves and the women in their communities. But they're not just telling women's stories, they're telling men's stories with empathy and understanding and compassion.
And when you're empowered, you're happier, you're making, you're changing things, you're creating things, and it's just nicer for the whole community, isn't it?
So I'm going to change it a little bit. We don't use the word empower. Back to the ethical storytelling. Empower means I'm giving you the power. You don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
We use empower because they already have the power within. We're just coming by and helping them unlock it. Not unlocking it for them, but helping them to unlock it. So we all have the power within. So I'm very careful about the words we use. We don't use words like empower. We don't use sir. We don't use beneficiary. And I'm on a goal to get that word in the dictionary one day. I really am.
Okay.
Empower. Yep.
So empower.
Awesome.
All right. I'm going to use that. Okay. So what are your goals for Cameras for Girls?
Oh, we have many goals.
I thought you might say that.
We just reached one of our major goals. We just got registered as a nonprofit in Uganda. So it happened while I was in Uganda. It's been a 2-year process. So we're known there as Cameras for Girls Training Initiative Limited, which is a mouthful, but I will continue to say Cameras for Girls Uganda. We want to grow to Kenya and South Africa in the next 2 years. We want to grow in Kenya. We'll partner with Aga Khan University, which is our hope. We're waiting for them to launch their undergraduate program. Right now they have a graduate program, so they don't need us. They'll need us in their undergrad. And South Africa, we're going to swing it up a little bit. We're going to partner with a documentary photographer there who is embedded in the nonprofits and the NGOs there. And instead of us going through universities, we're going to work with young women who are already wanting to get into that space, train them up, and then directly put them into work. Instead of this, it'll still be a year-long program, but it'll be a hybrid. They're working and earning at the same time. And our third goal is to grow our job creation program. So all of this, at the end of the day, starts with the idea of job creation for women. It's not about, hey, I'm going to put a camera in your hands. Like, there's many amazing organizations out there who do this, photography training in community. But we don't want it to stop there. We want it to be about job creation. Our United Nations SDG goals are 1, no poverty. 5, gender equality. 8, fair pay, equal opportunity. And so if we're not doing anything about job opportunities, what are we doing this for? What is the purpose of all of this? And so 80% of our graduates across the board are working, but we want to level it up a little bit. We want to pay them in US dollars. And so I'll give you a quick example of how that's happening right now. There's an amazing woman named Tiffany Orner who came to us as a mentor last year. And she started mentoring Sharon, who was in our first cohort way back in 2018. Sharon is a mother, a single mom to 3 young kids who has been striving to grow her digital marketing business. She was working for a newspaper. They weren't paying her enough, but taking well advantage of her skills. And so we've been trying over the years to get her into different trainings or to different companies, all without fail, because they don't want to see women in those industries. So here comes Tiffany as a mentor. She mentors Sharon to say, these are the things that you can do better, da, 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 da. And then I launched my job creation program. She sees it on the website and she goes, what's that about? So I said, well, I'm trying to pay our girls in US dollars. They have to have come through our training, have the skills, and are working, but not necessarily earning a good income yet. But I can see that they have the drive. And she goes, what if I was to become a donor for Sharon specifically? Would you give the money to her? I said, you give me exactly what you want. I give it to Sharon. I'm the conduit. And so it's been 3 months. Sharon's getting 150 US dollars. She's writing a series of articles for Tiffany, who's promoting it on her LinkedIn, called Letters from Uganda. It's about life of a woman living in Uganda. And Sharon is also doing some digital media for Tiffany. That 150 is now putting her kids through school, because earlier she didn't have the fees always consistently. Food on the table. She's saving 20% in a bank account that we dictated that she set up. So shit happens. Rainy days come. She will be prepared and there will be no disruption in her life. And this is what we're trying to build, because when you pay them in US dollars, the whole economy runs on US dollars, right? Everybody wants US dollars, even though there's the shilling, the Ugandan shilling, which is worth nothing at the end of the day. Right? 10,000 shillings to somebody is a lot of money. And yet that's $350 for us.
Yeah.
So imagine. And now imagine what that 150 can do. So this is what I'm really, really hopeful that we can build on.
Oh, that's a fantastic start. And I don't doubt you're going to get there with some help, I hope.
Yes.
So, okay, I think we should go to 6 from SheClicks now. I've got 10 questions from SheClickers, and I've nothing to worry about. I would like you to answer 6 questions, please, by picking numbers from 1 to 10. So if you could give me your first number.
2.
Number 2, what do you think is the most valuable skill girls learn during training with Cameras for Girls? And that question's from Carmen.
Well, thank you, Carmen. Confidence building, honestly. When they walk into our training, they have no confidence in themselves. They don't know me from Adam or Eve. They don't know what's going to happen. When they see the first photograph that they took because we do, photography practice and review, and then they throw them in the field on the 4th day with an NGO partner to do a field practice session. When they see that first photo, they understand they're capable. All those people before them that told you don't belong here, you shouldn't be in media, you don't deserve to be paid for this, you don't deserve a space here. They now know, okay, I'm starting to build my confidence and I can do.
Fantastic. Okay, can I have your second number, please?
4.
Oh, now you've actually answered this earlier, but there might be some more to add to it. So how are the girls selected to participate in the programme? That's by Marianne. You mentioned that they come from universities, but do you have more people wanting to come on the courses?
Yeah, we have a lot of women.
Yeah, so how do you select them?
So for our year-long training, we select them only through university partners, because it is the gift of a camera. And we need to make sure that they have that basic understanding of journalism and communications. And so we can mold them into what they need to be to get jobs. For the girls who come through LinkedIn, social media, website, we tell them that if you have your own tool, or even these partner organizations, we have so many of them now, that if they have their own tool, a smartphone or a camera, they can enter into the same training through our online learning hub, get the same skills everybody else is doing, including our 6-month mentorship program, as long as they're doing the work. And so we are so proud that we've got over, I think it's even more than 2,000 women across the board now, like joining from everywhere. And to see them come on the trainings, some of them are very still shy to share their photos, but for those that do, they're getting jobs. They're getting out there. And we're even in refugee settlements in Uganda, where one of the girls who took the training through us last year is now working with a camera that we gifted her. It was just a point and shoot, but she took that, ran with it, and now is earning an income living in the refugee settlement.
Oh, superb. Right. Your third number, please.
1.
Number 1, what is your proudest moment in connection with Cameras for Girls? And that's another question from Carmen.
Oh my. I think, honestly, it was last year. I applied. I'm a Vital Voices fellow. Vital Voices is a organization in the US that gives leadership training to women around the world. I was both in their initial leadership training and then the Global Summit. And I, from there, wrote a grant for Estee Lauder. And I was chosen out of 4 of us were chosen out of 60 applicants. I was the only North American to be awarded, and we got $50,000. And from there, we had a ceremony in New York and ended up in Vogue. And so I think to date, that's one of my proudest moments, because I started thinking, I need leadership skills. Where am I going to find them? And walking through this whole journey with them and beyond, and still continuing my journey. And it's just opened up so many doors. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's taken you in a direction you couldn't have predicted and brought some significant money.
Yeah. But can I share a second one that I'm proud of?
Go on then.
Is the first time Jonita wrote after, thinking, is this Cameras for Girls thing actually, going to work? Telling me that she got the job, where I knew that we were onto something.
Yeah.
And up until then, I thought, oh, well, that was a good exercise. But when we saw that power of that camera actually changed a life, which is what I envisioned from the beginning, that was my proudest.
The plan works. Yes. Very powerful. Okay. Your fourth question, please.
Let's go up a little bit. 7.
Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome, and how did you get through it? That question is from Liz.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day, honestly. I've been trying very hard over the last 2.5 years to grow my LinkedIn presence, because LinkedIn is where it's at. And, every time I get, oh, this is amazing, I'm like, really? I keep on having to ask, really? Right? But because you have that thing about, oh, look at what these people are doing. These are amazing. And you never look within. And yes, I have imposter syndrome. I think we all do a little bit. How I get over it is by, deep breathing and telling myself, look, you've gotten this far. Don't listen to the people. I still have those naysayers, people who tell me that I'm a fake, or I'm just doing this to make money. I don't even get paid and that hurts, because I'm doing this to make a difference in the world. I'm not, if I could be out there making money as a photographer or doing whatever, but I choose to do this. And so I have to not listen to the naysayers and remind myself that if this was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's how I get through it.
My take on it is that most tasks, no matter how big, they're achieved through a series of small steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how you break it down and make it easy for yourself. But when you get to the end of it, you need to remember the big jump that you've just made and not think about all those little steps that were easy, because actually you've achieved a heck of a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at how far you've come, and, I keep on having to remind myself, wait a second, you only went full-time 2.5 years ago. This has been running since 2018, but you only went full-time 2.5 years ago. And when I say full time, I mean full time, 24/7.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So I am proud, but there's still that thing in the back of your head, or somebody who says something who can throw you off your whole game. So I say ignore them.
Good plan. Okay, so your penultimate number, please.
This is my number 5. Did we do 1, 2, 3? Let's do 3.
Number 3. How difficult is it to source the funding and to find mentors? That's another question from Marie-Ange.
Mentors are easy. Mentors are very easy. People love to volunteer their time to mentor our girls. We have a 6-month mentorship program. And what we do is we try to pair a girl. So if she wants to be a photographer, we go and find a photographer. If she wants to get into communications, we find her in somebody in communications. So we match her accordingly. But the funding is the difficult part. So we are a Canadian charity working in the international space. So for that reason, we can't get government funding. And then we constantly having to be writing grants, which the thing around that is 1 out of 10 is the norm. So you write 10 grants to get 1, which is a lot of time to be writing grants. If I could hire somebody to write grants for me for the rest of my life, I would do it, because right now I'm in a hell of a grant and it's like, oh my God. And I wouldn't have gotten an Estee Lauder if I hadn't had that extra help, right? Because I'm not a grant writer. So you need to know your strengths. So that's why we built our monthly giving program, because we need to do sustainability funding. Then we look at, are we going to do a Giving Tuesday again this year and get buried in the dust with everybody else? Hell no. And we don't do galas either, because to raise $1, it takes $3 to $5, $3 US and $5 Canadian just to raise a buck. So it's not worth it when you're a small charity. But we are looking at bringing community together, right? Because when we bring community together, like last night, I did a Zoom donor event. This morning I got, so sorry, I missed it, Amina, this happened. We had 4 people, but I treated it like we have 50. Because I don't care. Each donor is special, right? And it comes down to donor stewardship and understanding their needs and their wants and feeding into that. People tell me, Amina, I give because I can't go to Africa and make the difference that you're making. So you're my conduit. You're doing it for me. You're showing me how it can be done. People give for various reasons, right? But we have to look at fundraising not as a eggs in one basket. We have to be like, I'm an out of the box thinker. Last night, and I said on the call last night, I said to my donors, yeah, my crazy brain does some, stuff out of the box sometimes. And my donor said, please don't let that crazy brain stop you, because look at what you're doing with it. So when it comes to fundraising, it is a constant hamster wheel. And my hope one day is that funders will understand that nonprofits, charities, organizations have a job they're trying to do. Don't stifle them with daunting fundraising applications or grant applications that they're never going to get. And they could spend better time, making an impact or building a program or doing something else or building their teams than sitting and spending 100 hours on an application, which is the average, which is crazy. Crazy.
Is there no sort of standardized system so you fill it out once and then you can fire it off?
No.
No.
Because every donor is different.
Yeah.
And people are building it, but it hasn't come to the market yet. And so it would be great if there was.
It would help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we've come to your last question, your last number, please.
Let's do number 10.
Okay.
10 out of 10.
So I think this is a good one to finish on. I've been asked this by several SheClickers. How can photographers across the globe support Cameras for Girls?
Oh, I love this question. Thank you. Donate your time. Donate your experience, right? We do our Friday live trainings. And as I mentioned, we have lots of live training sessions. We have guest speakers. We had Manuchair Dagati, who's an Iranian documentary storyteller. He's 75. He's shot everywhere. He came on last Friday and did a session with our girls talking about documentary storytelling and how he approaches storytelling. We've had photographers come on and teach about all types of photography, not just documentary. So if you have an interest in teaching for an hour, we would love to have you, because they get bored of me and I get bored of being the teacher all the time.
Yeah.
And it gives them a different aspect into the lens, right? When they can see how photographers approach their passion for photography, and how they even started, their story about how they started and where they are today. And you might not be where you want to be, but you're doing it. So, kudos to that, because it's not an easy industry. I wish I had more time for my own photography. I used to do portraits. I used to do, the only time I enjoy photography is when I'm out in the different parts of the world and I can get into documentary photography. Otherwise, it's birding for me, or nature photography for stress relief. But otherwise, I don't get to take my camera out unless I'm teaching, because I find it really challenging to get into that part of my brain now, because I'm just so busy giving and teaching all the time.
Yeah.
So if the short answer is, if you have a skill, if you know photography, if you want to teach something, whether it's technical or not, or just for the love of photography, please reach out to me. We'd love to have you.
And how should they do that, to reach out to you?
They can find us on our website. So www.camerasforgirls.org. So that's FOR. Or they can send me an email at amina@camerasforgirls.org, or find us on Instagram at Cameras for Girls, or LinkedIn. That's where we're hanging out. We're not on Facebook or anything else.
Okie doke. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really interesting hearing from you.
Oh, this has been amazing. I really appreciate this, especially getting to speak to the photography community. And if I can leave one thing, we all have it in us as a skill. And whether you look globally or whether you look locally, there is somebody who wants to learn but may not have the opportunities. So give of yourself and your talents to an organization, to a nonprofit, to a charity, to help them tell their story. Or find a refugee or an immigrant who's struggling and wants to tell their story, and to help them tell it, because it really will make the world a more beautiful place through the lens.
Okay, well, I think that's a great point to finish. So thank you so much again for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to everybody who sent in a question. You'll find links to Amina's website and social media channels in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find SheClicks on Facebook, X, Instagram and YouTube if you search for SheClicksNet. So until next time, enjoy your photography.